This week, a roundtable of the International Luxembourg Forum on Preventing Nuclear Catastrophe was held in Prague, where experts gathered to discuss disarmament and non-proliferation. I attended that conference with IBA's Dennis Zinn, where we asked the former Israeli Deputy National Security Advisor and head of the Bureau of International Security, the Ministry of Defense, Dr. Ariel Levite, if he views the delay in international efforts to reach a long-term nuclear accord with Iran as having positive or negative implications.
Well, it has its pluses and minuses. I think on the one hand, the interim agreement didn't capture many aspects of the Iranian nuclear program we would have wanted to capture, and those therefore are still missing. But on the other hand, we didn't get a bad agreement. So on the whole, it's not catastrophic. It isn't great.
What do you believe that Iran is holding out for? What's its end game?
Oh, I think Iran wants to keep itself an option to produce nuclear weapons were it to decide that the circumstances require that. So I think Iran is definitely creating a sort of a nuclear hedge and wants to retain that, notwithstanding the constraints imposed on it. I think so. That's, I think, one issue. The second is Iran would want to win itself off the sanctions regime and the special inspections as soon as possible. I think those are the two driving aspects. Not to mention, domestic political consideration of symbolic concessions and gains and things of that nature, and who gets the credit or the blame for either.
And do you think that the P5+1 countries are prepared to capitulate to Iran's demands to even bring them to becoming a nuclear threshold country?
Well, it all depends on definitions, mind you. I mean, if one were to say that Iran would be 1 year away from having enough fissile material for a bomb, and then which would mean, say, 18 months to 24 months from a bomb, would that be an accomplishment or a loss? I don't think it would be capitulation. I don't think it will be an astounding success either. It will be somewhere in between. I think the parties are willing to settle for that kind of an arrangement. Thus far, the Iranians haven't, particularly because those 18 to 24 months time frame would be accompanied by presumably a fairly thorough verification regime and some consequences that would flow if Iran was cheating. So I think that's a stumbling block.
And what does it indicate to you? Just recently, United Nations Secretary General Ban has made a lot of news saying that Iran has so far failed to even meet its obligations that were due last summer, last August. There is so far no nuclear transparency going on. Can we expect that at some point Iran will agree to this?
Well, there are two issues here. One is, I think, a bargaining chip. One is more fundamental. I think on the one hand, Iran holds out its concessions, so until everything is agreed, nothing is agreed. So there, I think, is a tactical issue. I would expect the Iranians to be slightly more forthcoming as part of a comprehensive agreement. And whereas I think the current situation is lamentable, it's understandable. I do think that what will emerge at the end of it in terms of the verification arrangements and Iran's transparency and so on might still fall short of what I would think is necessary.
Okay, one last question for you, and that is that if a deal, a long-term accord with Iran is eventually secured, do you think that Israel's own nuclear development program will come under greater scrutiny and under increased efforts by the international community regarding non-proliferation?
Well, I think there would be an effort by some to do that. I don't expect that much will come out of it, but I do expect that there will be an Iranian-Arab affair attempt to try and draw attention to this issue that you've talked about.
Are you pessimistic regarding a settlement with Iran?
I'm not pessimistic because I don't think that we are going to get a catastrophic agreement. I think we're going to get something that is anywhere between the current situation plus marginal improvement around it, or a better agreement. So I'm not pessimistic at all. I don't think we'll get a fantastic agreement, but I don't think we'll get a complete breakdown, showdown, and military confrontation thereafter.
An agreement that Israel can live with?
The agreement for Israel can live with is in something that the Israeli Prime Minister will have to make a decision on, not me.